get ready to the countdown.
Hello, everyone.
Hey.
Let us know if you can hear us really well. We are going to share the stream, so we're inviting you guys to do that as you come in. Before we start, we're going to go ahead and share the stream on our pages, so we invite you to do the same. How is everybody?
So far, so good.
Yay, that's good.
Waking up.
I'm just actually going to our Glass Tables page where it's actually streaming now. And you can hit share from that page or hit a watch party.
Yeah.
Let me try to do that.
Oh, damn.
I'm worried it's going to come through my earphones, though. We'll see.
I dodged a major bullet today because, first of all, my mother didn't come home, actually. It's just my sister, which is half the amount of, like, I want in my life, anyway.
But you got some good home cooking from your grandma, right?
How do you... Oh, my God. I don't know how they are called in English, but she made some, like... First of all, she made chicken because she's got chickens. So them chickens be tasty. Like those are them farm chickens, y'all. They are like out on the field all day, and then they get, when they stop laying eggs about 3 years old, that's when she cut them off.
I couldn't do it.
What?
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, me neither. I wouldn't be able to do it, but I love me some meat, so.
Yeah, respect.
Chicken's good.
Uh-oh. I went to scratch my ear and dropped my headphones. So I'm waiting for you guys to come in here. As you guys are coming in here, we have an interesting show today. If you've been following our page and following hopefully and subscribe to our channel, you know that we have been, our topic has been activism. We've been talking about the great history that we have as activists. We also talked about our favorite activists. We talked about some of our favorite YouTubers last week. And now we're talking about a different side of activism. If you are in activism, you know that there are also challenges that you face in activism. So we won't beat around the bush. You know that the name of the stream is about toxic activism. So you're probably wondering what that means. So let's go around the glass table to talk about what we think or how we would define activism that we would consider toxic. Molly, did you want to start?
I can, if you want me to.
Sure.
Well, in my opinion, the biggest thing is, and I'm trying to not sound like an asshole, because I have been told that I. So, my cup. Yeah.
I've got the other one here, but I'm not using it.
I just got my glass table mug, y'all, which is available now. Go ahead, Molly.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm trying not to be an asshole, and yeah. So basically, Ex JW support groups are very awesome and amazing, and they are needed. Yes, but at the same time, when I have seen it happen that those who created these Facebook groups do not encourage the members to actually get proper professional and certified therapists, but they encourage the members to just rant, vent, and rave in the group, which is also cool. That's also needed, yes. But at the same time, when you're raving about how I've seen that happen, that a woman had her child basically kidnapped, and instead of turning to CPS, she was asking a Facebook group to write letters to her mom to give her kid back. And I'm like, yo, call the police. That's what you do, not turn to a Facebook group. And I think that kind of dependency is toxic, as well as cloud chasing. There is a certain level of cloud that you need to invest in equipment, that you need to have in order to get a message out, yes. But at the same time, you cannot have your entire activist career wrapped around the Patreon money and the fame, the name. Most likely, neither of us will be famous or well known after we're gone. And eventually Watchtower will adapt more secular policies, and then you're gonna be like an idiot with your Patreon and not being able to make a living because you forgot how to actually work. So I think that's a major red flag when an activist, unless it's for health reasons or anything like that, because obviously there are disabilities, mental and physical, that do not allow you to work. But but yeah, if it's if I'm a physically healthy person and I am able to work, and then if I would suddenly lose my job or quit my job to do activism full time, I think that would be sketchy. As well as flip flopping. Like some activists are like, oh, I'm taking a break, or I'm pursuing something that gives more money, and then once they ride that money wave, they are like, oh well, I missed all of you. So how are you? What do you want to talk about? I'm back and more vulnerable than ever. Oh, so good to see you again. And I'm like, well, you realize that you did just tell your audience that you will stop making activism content because your secular job offered you more money if you put in more time. And then and then once that's done, you're like, well, I'm guess to the Patreon money again, because work doesn't give me that level of money again, which is
Well, Molly, you have unpacked a few things that we can actually talk about today. Looks like you're talking about trauma bonding and ex Jehovah's Witness groups.
yeah.
The appearance of the question in the ex Jehovah's Witness community when you are going to a bigger platform, to Patreon or not to Patreon, and also clout chasing. So, Chessa, did you want to tackle any of those, or did you have some of your own?
Oh goodness. Okay. Well, listen, we're all human here, and all of us are coming out of a place of trauma, whether we recognize that or not. I know some of us leave the organization and we think, well, I wasn't a child sexual abuse victim. I didn't go through this specific set of circumstances, so I'm all right. But the truth is, we've all been abused and manipulated by an organization. We've all been spiritually abused, and we've all had our values abused. So when we come out of the organization, we still have strong held values. Like, it's kind of like entrenched into us. So when we have no direction and we don't know where we're going, and we have this kind of dissociative thing with our identity, because it's hard to recognize yourself coming out of such a strict, one way to live type scenario to a broader world completely. So a lot of people become reactive. A lot of people are triggered. a lot of people don't have mental health resources. Maybe they never had a therapist, or if they went to a therapist while they were a Jehovah's Witness, they went to mostly psychologists that would prescribe them medication because the organization doesn't want anything that counters their narrative. So they don't want you to go to a talk psychologist. They don't want talk therapy. So a lot of us don't really have like an internal navigation or compass, and we feel very unguided, and we tend to be very black and white about things because we were so used to always being right or always feeling right as Jehovah's Witnesses. We have the truth. Like, we know what we're talking about, right? Like, and it's so you're going to have proactive activism and you're going to have reactive activism. And all of us kind of have to educate ourselves as much as everybody's educating themselves about other stuff right now. It's one thing to recognize something and to see that something is there, like the high percentage of ex-Jehovah's Witnesses with mental illness or Jehovah's Witnesses with mental illness. That's a statistic, so you can look it up. But if you look at that, you can see it. But it's different to see it versus learn about it and introspectively question and seek outside help. A lot of us don't know how to do that. You know, when you had issues, like if there was a custody issue and you were a Jehovah's Witness, where did you go? You went to the older sisters in the congregation, and usually they referred you to an elder, and then you spoke to the elder, and then they got involved. And it was their opinion. It was strictly their opinion that you followed. So you always had this guidance, and when you leave, you don't have that anymore. So you have this community of people just like you who have been through this, who you do trauma bond with, and you try to help have them navigate this with you, but they don't know what they're doing either. We're all still figuring out what we're doing. So you can't allow that to be a force of guidance in your life per se. And I know we're giving advice today, but in general, it is always best to seek outside assistance, whether you have to call 211 for resources, if you need help paying your bills, or if you need free legal assistance through the state. They have things for people who have had their children taken away by the state that's independent, and you can reach them for that. Or mental health therapy. You will grow so much. And not only that, but the more you grow yourself, if you want to be involved with the community, you can do that too, but in a healthy way. And it helps you keep it in perspective. So you don't kind of lose yourself in this new cause that you have now that your old cause that was forced on you is taken away. So it's like really like a psychosocial dynamic situation. But I think by all of us being transparent like we are today and opening up about it, maybe we can learn new ways to grow together.
Right.
And work on this while helping ourselves at the same time.
Yeah. Emma, did you have any opening thoughts about either, I know you run an ex Jehovah's Witness group, trauma bonding. I mean, I guess the definition is, by definition, is this what? Bonding together solely by the trauma that you've experienced. But I mean, I've experienced, not, I mean, I think that could also be very unhealthy, but there are other bright sides to being in an ex Jehovah's Witness group, because you're bonding with people who actually understand, and that's not something that you really can get from the outside.
Can I just say first to Linda,
Yeah.
well done, and thank you for being another victim that's come forward and spoke to the Truth
Yes.
Project that's here in the UK. That's really brave of you, and the more people that come forward, the better. So I'm in the UK too, so I know about the Truth Project. Project, not product. Yeah, I guess trauma bonding, it's a big thing, because in the group, you know, everyone's been through what you've been through, but also some people tend to use it as an excuse to be abusive to others, and that's where I'm kind of like, that's where it gets toxic for me. You know, I will still remove people from my group that I consider toxic to other people, because you're just going to harm other people in the group that are trying to heal. And it's not a place to do that. I understand why people are angry, which is fair enough, but when you start taking it to a certain level, then it's not good. And clout chasing activism is what I prefer to call it, because to me that's when your heart's not in it. You're trying to be someone known, and that's not what being an activist is about. And I've got a weird echo coming back at me, so if I'm talking slow, it's because it's distracting me.
You sound great on this end. I'm sorry about the echo. I don't know what's going on today. Molly, did you want me to double back before did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, thanks. So it's just another thing is I mentioned it, but like we're talking about trauma bonding and bonding with people who share your experience. That's very important. But like us here, the four of us here, we came together because something happened. Like we were affected by toxic activism, and that's what brought us together. But now we're talking basically all day about like makeup, private stuff, like our life in general. We just discuss it, we share it with one another, and that's a difference because because when you only have I'm an Ex JW, you're an Ex JW, and that's the only connection that you have. Sure, initially that's it. And with most people from the community who don't interact with me much, I might keep it to that level, and it's not because I want them to trauma bond with me, but I will have them and I will refer them to professional sources. And when an activist does not do that, that's an issue, because you see, yes, we experienced these same things: child abuse, sexual, spiritual, physical, mental, all sorts of abuse, but um but at the same time, you need, as an activist, to admit when something is not in your league. And if an activist you follow doesn't do that, like if an activist doesn't say, hey, yes, I have this and this like problem with my mental health, but I went to therapy, and I encourage you to do that for yourself too, as best as you can, because social anxiety is a bitch, so not all of us are able to easily leave the house. But it's important that we highlight therapy and medication works. It's there for a reason. Some people might just need talk therapy, some people need just the meds, some people need both. But the point stands that we need to encourage the Ex JW community to do therapy.
So on the subject of trauma bonding, I just want to say that generally when psychologists talk about bonding, they talk about it in the context of a narcissistic partner in that you're making the bond with being manipulative. And I don't think most of the ex Jehovah Witness groups that I've experienced have been like that. I just think that so I just want to be clear that I think someone asked what trauma bonding is. uh, I just want to be clear about what their definition is. I do also want to say that it's an ex Jehovah Witness group, so people know what they're getting into. I mean, it is just Facebook. I mean, it's not a when people come into ex Jehovah Witness groups. When you run a group, you realize that you can't run a group where people can just talk about everything. I mean, you have to have a singular focus, a reason for why you're there. That's why there's so many Facebook groups with so many different interests, so many different hobbies. And then when people usually generally complain in the groups that I'm in, I'm always saying there's so many other groups that you can join. uh, not just mine. If you don't feel like that I'm running it a certain way, or I do notice that some groups, most groups, ex Jehovah Witness groups that I've been in, have disclaimers that let you know that they are not therapists. They are not there to replace therapy. Um, I did notice that there are some groups that have the 211. They have a bunch of resources in the about section. So but unfortunately, people don't actually look at that section when they join groups. But however, that protects you. If you're a ex Jehovah Witness thinking about opening an ex Jehovah Witness group, you don't have to be a therapist to do it. But at the same time, you want to give a disclaimer. Now, unhealthily bonding, I mean, that I have seen in the ex Jehovah's Witness community is that sometimes I call it almost like reverse. I'm not gonna say I see it typically with women. I won't say that because I've seen it with men. When you've been in a position where you have been an elder, where you used to hearing people's intimate things and all they raunchy ins and outs of their lives and stuff like that, or you've been a pioneer and you've had Bible studies who pour their hearts out to you as to why they can't progress in them. Sometimes I wonder, do you miss that bonding? Because as a Jehovah's Witness, you did bond with them over really unhealthy things in the organization. I mean, unhealthy policies. Nobody should ever be in a religious organization where they have to pour their intimate ins and outs and details, sex lives, mental health, all bunch of just personal things to people who are just like you, who have absolutely no training, and who will turn around and sometimes use this information to hurt you, because it's not all the time that they, even the elders who want to counsel you under the guise of spiritual guidance. It's not usually spiritual guidance that they're looking for. They're looking to see whether or not you did something wrong and whether or not they need to make a committee or not. So I say that to say that sometimes we have to be careful because of our background as Jehovah's Witnesses, that we did a lot of unhealthy bonding in that way, that we don't transfer those platforms over into the ex Jehovah's Witness world where we feel like we need to know all these intimate details about people to help them. I have been in positions where I have told very intimate things to people I've considered friends in the ex Jehovah's Witness community, and I feel like they've come back to hurt me, whether or not they have expressed it verbally, or somehow it took away from, they felt like I was less credible because of my own challenges and situations. And I think that's what Molly was getting on, hinting on with the mental health, which we'll circle back to. But I just wanted to say that, all bonding is not bad. Also, I have experienced, not experienced personally, but know of people who use their platforms for the sole purpose of getting that type of information from people, or knowing that type of information from people, so that they can feel closer to that person, and this person feels like they can follow them better. I don't know. I won't name names, but I just say that it happens. None of us are qualified. None of us are therapists. All we're trying to do is help people, I guess, leapfrog in their journey from where we were, that they are better than we were walking alone in this journey. And I have to say, for me, I didn't have the ex Jehovah's Witness community when I first came out. I'm new to the ex Jehovah's Witness community. I've only been in it about 3 years. I would say actively doing activism, or things that could be considered activism, in the last 6 months. So I've seen a lot, experienced a lot already. Um, so I don't want to keep talking about trauma bonding, but I did want to go back to something that we mentioned, and I wanted to see if we can further define this about clout chasing. You can flash your cup again, Molly. Emma. Yeah, clout chasing. Like, what do we mean by clout chasing? Is all clout chasing bad?
Sorry, I'm not. I don't know if I cut you off because sometimes there's a slight lag. But I want to say that when I joined the community about 7 months ago myself, and I immediately became active, to the point when I joined many groups. I moderated multiple groups and still do. And I am on active on my YouTube channel. I'm active, as you can see. Hey, hi, I'm here. So active here. And what's crazy is that I have been told that because of my queer identity, I am not capable of properly moderating groups. I have been told that. I have been told that because I am a queer person, and because I get sensitive about even the slightest hint of homophobia or queerphobia, as I prefer to call it, I am not qualified to help others, which is, I think, another very toxic thing to say, because obviously, just because I get sensitive, that doesn't mean that I'm not reasonable. Like, people in the Ex JW community need to stop equating being emotional and vulnerable with being unreasonable. Is all.
Before we go into Clout Chaser, Emma, did you have some thoughts?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that when you confide in somebody about your mental health, and you, like you said, Spencer, I wanted to touch on that, when you consider that person a friend, and then they turn around at a later date and use that against you, that is toxic.
Because
That's
how
just what
can
I
you
wanted
put
to say.
yourself in a position to help other people when you're harming the other people in the community? I think that's another thing. Some people think it's toxic to call out toxicity. Think about it. How many times have I personally heard since I've been in the community
Mhm.
that basically, well, we all have the same goal and we're all trying to bring down the watchtower. Let's focus on that. Let's not focus on the underbelly of toxicity that's going on here, because you are toxic for saying that it's toxic.
Mhm. Exactly. And as JWs, we never really called stuff out. Now we are, which we should. Just because you're an ex JW does not mean that you should get away with stuff. So people are going to call you out. And I've been recently called toxic as well because I've spoke up about recent issues. Well, I'm not going to stop. So
I mean, what's crazy about that is, well, first of all, we are all Ex JWs, yes, but don't try to sweep me under the same rug that you are. Like, it's the same as not all women are the same, not all white, not all black, not all brown, not all gay, not all straight people are the same. Ergo, not all Ex JWs have the same goals. I have spoken to activists who just want to do their YouTube channel for a year or two, get their thoughts in order, and then boom, bye, gone, done. Like some activists, and that's also good activism, because your story and you sharing how you detangled yourself from that spider's web of abuse that we all suffered from can help tremendously. And I find those kinds of people the most enlightening for me personally, because they share their stories and they donate to worthy causes and so on and so on and so on, which is great. But not everyone will be in it for years, and that's also okay. We do not have to make people we don't have to make people who just want to have a few videos and then they are done with it. We don't have to make them feel bad. That's also fine. Some people cannot carry I'm sorry, carry the burden of active long run activism, because it's bloody draining. In all honesty, it's draining. It's very tiresome. It's very time consuming. And when you have a full-time job like I do, you will be like up and down about it. Some days you will shoot 3 videos and distribute them through the weeks, and some days you cannot get to making a video for 2 weeks because job, kids, family, life, all that stuff gets in the middle of it. And that's cool.
I just want
And
to acknowledge one of the
yeah.
comments here that says the thing is that not everyone's goal is to battle the watchtower. Some people want to heal and help others to heal from the trauma. I think that was my initial goal coming into activism. I don't think I would I didn't think I would be in protest, but that I don't rule it out now. I definitely want to do a protest. But I thought, my role or that I could be best help against, because thing of the matter is, if you're helping other people recover from the watchtower, I do think that is a form of battling the watchtower, because you're kind of making sure that that person doesn't go back to the trauma that they had before. And that is so easy for us. How many times, I don't care how long you've been out as a Jehovah's Witness, uh, some witnesses will tell you, or ex Jehovah Witnesses will tell you, you always had this lingering doubt of what if I'm wrong, initially. You know what I'm saying? For many, many years. And some people, with the groups, I have personally known, and I think, Emma, you even said this on another show, that people have said that these groups have saved their lives too. I think that if my friend who killed himself, I've talked about our family friend who killed himself, I think if he would have had knew about ex Jehovah Witnesses, or the community at all, or he was on Facebook, but I don't think he had any idea about the groups, because for a long time I was on Facebook. I had no idea there was an extra. I didn't even know what an ex Jehovah Witness was. I thought that was just not even a real word, that you could be an ex Jehovah Witness. So I don't think I would even looked it up. But some of these groups are lifelines for people, and that's why it's all the more important for people who put themselves in the leadership positions or leading the charge, that you make sure that you're healthy and that you're whole and that you're not giving people out of a deficit, and that you're not hurting people, the very people that you claiming to help. Because hurting some people and then turn around saying, well, but look at all the people I'm helping. How's that any different than what the Watchtower used to say? In their minds, a few sex abuse victims or a few victims of abuse here falling by the wayside, when we're doing a larger goal of, educating the world about the Watchtower. We have to make sure that, we don't fall in that same mindset, that we feel like a few people abused or a few people stepped over. It's just a sacrifice along the way, so that we can hit our bigger goal of fighting the Watchtower, where we would be using the same mindset as the Watchtower. We really wouldn't be any different, in helping other people.
Yeah, like you said, I've had many members turn around to me and say that my group has saved their life, literally, and that is really touching. And I've also got to give props to my group, that we do get the odd drama now and again, but it's such a supportive group. And people will post that they're feeling really down that day, and the members will be there, like, you can ring me, you can message me. And I love that about my group. Everyone does mostly have everyone's back and there for everybody.
Yeah. And Molly, you had something to add?
Yeah, basically about the, let's focus on bringing down the tower, and I feel like it's kind of a thought-stopping technique for those people who use it. At least those people who used it to discourage me from talking about what I'm talking about. It's like, okay, would I be happy if Watchtower would just up and not be? Yes. But at the same time, first of all, I prefer them out in public, because then I can see them. Then I can spread the information. But if they go bunker, they go undercover and underground, you will not be able to help anyone. Do you really want to scare them into it's already a bunch of very vulnerable, very emotionally and like all through the bite model manipulated people? Do you really want them to go underground? That would like multiply the abuse within the Watchtower. And real talk, we might never see that happen. What I want for Watchtower is like what happened with the Catholic Church. They got called out, they took steps to improve, and now they are like, how can I say it without being an asshole? They are like bearable to look
Chess,
at.
I don't mean to cut you off, but Chess, I'm glad to have you back before we lose you again, because I know you've been in and out. Look at Chessa's hair, y'all. Isn't it just perfect, y'all? Looking like a Barbie doll over there. Um, Is it toxic to call out toxicity?
It can be. It
Okay.
definitely can be. I think that there's a healthy way to address this kind of issue in our community and in culture in general. But I think that when you direct it towards a person, when you narrow it in, and when you really start making it personal, and we all have a hard time. You have to hold yourself back because sometimes you can see people being so hypocritical or so abusive, and it just fills you with like vitriol. You're just like, how do you have the audacity? You know, it's one thing to choose. It's one thing to be ignorant. It's another way to choose ignorance. So for me, that's like my pet peeve. All of us have them. But if someone is choosing to be ignorant about what they're doing to other people or what they're doing to themselves, and they kind of have this like self-knowledge of their behavior, but they're really becoming damaging and hurtful to themselves and others, it's hard because you want to protect yourself, you want to protect others, you want to protect them a lot of times. And a lot of us, because we trauma bond, we get so close to each other so quickly. There's like no screen kind of. So like a lot of times you can feel like you really, really know someone like deeply. And like you guys have like a really strong foundation for a friendship. And then all of a sudden it's like they never knew you. All your personal business is out there, you know? So, I mean, so for me, like what I've tried to do, and I'm not perfect, is address the behavior without necessarily addressing or naming who it is. And I know people have differences on that because sometimes there are people who are abusive, like very, very abusive in our community. And some people feel like, well, you should name them. You should call them out because they're a danger, right? But it's case by case, whatever you decide to do, your thing. I always consult a therapist, honestly. Like if I'm really that upset and I don't really know ethically what to do, therapists have to deal with that all the time. You have to think about it. Like the occupation of being a therapist, you have people who come to you and really disclose some things about how they are behaving in a very damaging and toxic way. And sometimes it's hard for therapists even to, because they're still human, kind of view things objectively after a certain point. And it depends on who the therapist is, just like it depends on who the activist is. But all of us know what it's like to be damaging in a way. When you've been abused, you have to learn defense mechanisms, and then you are taught that by the narcissist or by the person who's attacking you, because that's essentially their aggression. You don't really know how to, so you kind of start exhibiting those tactics. And usually abusive tactics are the best way to get someone to stop doing something. So if you're someone who's been hurt and you don't want to be hurt anymore, what are you going to try to do? You're going to try and do the quickest, hardest hitting thing you can and stop it right away. And sometimes you can really hurt somebody else doing that. And I think the other thing I always look at too is one of the things we learned when we were Jehovah's Witnesses was to tell on each other.
Yeah.
And to police each other. So it's one thing if someone exhibits like really egregious behavior and you have like a genuine like concern, like a sense of alarm, that's one thing. But if it's a matter of difference of opinion, as irritated as you may be, or as much as you may think that that person's an asshole, it's not worth damaging not only them, but everyone around you going on that kind of, going down that road. But all of us are reactive. All of us get triggered. None of us are perfect. I'm certainly not. So, I mean, I'm not saying that everyone is going to be successful or that I'll be successful 100% of the time. But what I am saying is if you have the goal of trying to approach things and address things that are serious in a healthy way, just continue to check yourself, continue to ask outside expert opinion on the matter, and just grow.
I wanted to acknowledge Kim Mikey here. Thanks for joining us, Kim Mikey, on our live today. Saying that, but if you're calling out the abusive person, then you get attacked. That is quite naturally always the case, because that actually brings us to what we're going to talk about before we start looking in the comments in a few minutes, the cancel culture. When you begin calling out toxicity, the person's or in the people that follow them, because begin to call you toxic. How can I say this? We live in a follow culture. Whether you're on Facebook or whether you're on Twitter, um, you got to hit the follow button to be able to follow your favorite activist or follow. And sometimes, people can get so caught up in who they think they are, or who they are to the community, and then actually helping people. And I'll just say that, that sometimes their followers can be just as toxic as the person that you can't even call out big name activists. And I'll just leave it at that. If you see a big name activist, and I'm gonna say big name only because they have, lots of followers. People, some of these activists have lots of followers. If you begin to call out their toxic behavior or just bad behavior, or maybe a misstep here or there, you'll get a swarm. And I noticed they like the beehive, honey, like Beyonce. Then you get a swarm of followers from the ex Jehovah Witness activists, and all of a sudden they started to paint you as the person as being an activist. And Kim Mikey, I don't. Another thing, um, I don't think any of us feel like they should have a platform where they can't be checked about something that they're doing that could be harming somebody. If you are too big in this ex Jehovah Witness world that can nobody say nothing to you, then you have evolved past an activist. You're an idol now. You have fans. You're not just an activist anymore. You know what I'm saying? So um it's really hard. You toe a thin line um in our community, because the follow culture, it goes a little deeper than with us, because we were not just followers of people, we were like really followers of men. And sometimes we transfer that mindset of, needing a governing body and needing somebody to follow, needing somebody to give us this information, on a weekly basis. I don't know, some ex Jehovah Witnesses attend some of these activist channels as if it was the Kingdom Hall every week, and that's fine. But I guess what I'm saying, when you take that culture over, and then now you're starting to attack other ex Jehovah Witnesses, like the Jehovah's Witnesses do, and then there are some people who personally think that I am toxic because of the fact that, or I have exhibited toxic behavior because I've called out what I perceive as toxicity. The only thing I can say to that is don't exhibit toxic behavior. I mean, if you're not toxic, it would be nothing to call out, right? That's how I feel about that. Chessa, we may have a slight difference opinion in approach in how we call it out, because I believe in calling out names.
I
But
know.
but I totally respect those who don't feel that way, because it's a room in our community for both.
Mhm.
Because sometimes, a lot of us is nosy. Come on, we don't even got to call out names, and we already know some of the time who
Yeah.
people we talking about, because it's a small ex Jehovah Witness world. It's almost like a small Kingdom Hall sometimes.
Mhm.
But
Everybody
you
know
know what?
everybody.
It makes people scared to speak out about these people. I'm not going to name the person, but I had a bit of an ooh first conversation I had with them ever on Twitter. And the stuff they said to me, they didn't even know me, saying I had no empathy for Jehovah's Witnesses. And I was just like, whoa, whatever. And because I didn't agree with him, I got attacked by his minions. And so it makes people like scared to speak up to these people because they know they're just going to get these hordes of followers come after them and attack them.
Mhm.
Okay, because let's just keep it all the way real. We have had activists go onto even another extreme, making lists of people that they feel are toxic or bitches or whatever. Okay, so let's just keep it all the way real. People, this runs deep with some other activists who feel like that. Okay, well, if you call out certain stuff, you on my list. And then there's other people who actually feel that way. The people that follow them. And then you think about it too. I almost wonder if it's the nature of YouTube, because when you think about it, when YouTubers that are not in the ex Jehovah Witness world, like Sylvia said, the ex Jehovah Witness hive. That's what they are, y'all. They do the same thing. They go in, But I think when it goes to a level, even in the ex Jehovah, like was outside of the ex Jehovah's Witness world, when it gets to the level that the activists are doxing other activists, or I don't know, telling personal things about other activists, in an effort to smear them and discredit them, and then I don't understand people who are observing it. If you don't want to say anything about it, don't say anything about it, but don't call the people who are calling obviously toxic behavior out. How is that toxic? If we put these people on a level to a point where they can't be checked, then you're back in the Kingdom Hall, because then we couldn't check the elders. They had got you couldn't go walk up on an elder and say, "Oh, okay, you're doing X, Y, and Z." So now you're putting them back on elder status, which is the whole thing we're trying to dismantle in the first place. The secret code and the good old boys club that they had in the Kingdom Hall. I see y'all lighting up these comments. A lot of people have a lot to say here. Before we got to the comments, did anybody have something they wanted to touch on? Anybody I missed? Go ahead, Molly.
Thanks. I'm sorry, I speak a lot. But yeah, the thing is, when I came across Ex JW YouTube, first of all, most of these activists are not in the like Sylvia said, they are not in the grand scheme of things. They don't have millions of followers, and the thing about that is it's cool, because yeah, I want my YouTube channel to be bigger, because I believe that Ex JW women and Ex JW queer women are like severely missed and underrepresented, and I also believe that um, that I want to do secular activism, and that does include Ex JW activism, but my activism is not like all around me being an Ex JW, because I took almost a decade to heal from that before I got into activism. I moved on, and as much as I still have those days when I'm just like about things, but yeah, I'm trying not to be, and I am medicated, and I am under CBT, cognitive behavior therapy, which is very useful. I think everyone should go to therapy, be Ex JW or not. Every adult has stress in life that requests that they visit a therapist and get some proper professional advice. And the other thing is, like Chessa said, we're reactive, and most of us have triggers. And what's important about being what are you doing? An activist is acknowledging that it's not, if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. No, fuck you. Take down the heat. It's if you are like uploading videos of yourself crying about your mama shunning you, then you have to get your head out of your ass and do for the people you swore to do for, because that's what you'll be doing in your videos. All of the activists, and we're not naming names, but those we are talking about, they all do that. And I'm just gonna leave it at that. But basically, I have also been told that if you're triggered, scroll on, and I'm like, fuck you. I turn to you because I'm not just a moderator or an admin in your group. I'm also a member. And when you're triggered, you're not in a rational state of mind. When you're triggered, you're not like, okay, tell whoever that I was triggered and why, so they can handle it. You're not rational. You're either completely shut down, and guess what? Most people do not like to share that they are triggered, because because on social media, being triggered is equal to being an overly sensitive snowflake or whatever, because empathy and being genuinely caring is for pussies, I guess, or whatever. But the point is that if you genuinely care for people, excuse me, but if you genuinely care for people, then you will not tell them to, if you can't handle homophobes, you should get out of the group. No, get the homophobe out of the group, especially because we come from a very homophobic background, to the point when people I love, who were not even religious ever, they are having suicidal thoughts because they are gay. So fuck you and your, if you cannot take it, get out of the kitchen. No. You should be empathetic, and if you want the minorities, the black people, the women, the queer people, you have to get the bigots out. I'm sorry, that's just how it fucking works. You cannot have the minorities and those who are oppressed, those who are stomped upon, and those who had their voice taken by this cult and society at large. You cannot have them and the bigots who try to take their rights, who try to take their dignity and try to take their voice away. I'm sorry. It's
Well, no, I think you're making a good point, and we're gonna circle back to Chessa here. There are some groups that allow toxicity in it. Okay, like racism. And racist comments or over the top, rape jokes. Just some of anything. And then if you call that out in their group, it's like, no, you're a snowflake, or you're just triggered, or you need to, like you say, you need to scroll on. No, there's some things that just should be off limits. You know what I'm saying? Like there's just, I mean, some things, if we're coming from a background of where we have been made to feel, like we can't, like we have to be the silent culture. And then to ask people to also to be silent again in the face of obvious wrongdoing. Again, you have to ask yourself, if you run in a group like that and you allow those certain things after multiple complaints of those of minorities that have been oppressed, women, gays, blacks, or whatever, you need to take a hard look in the mirror to see whether or not are you helping people more than you harming them? Because of if people don't feel comfortable being in your group, because I'm not going to name any names, but I have seen overt racist comments or sexist comments or homophobic comments in some of the Ex Jehovah Witness groups. And it happens because we're people. There are homophobic and racist and sexist, people. I get that. But at the same time, there are some groups that have a reputation for allowing that certain thing under the banner of free speech, which, if you of a minority, me being a woman and also being, a race, black or whatever, it makes you feel like there are just certain groups you just will not frequent. And I guess that's also our right too. You have the right to leave the group without complaining as well. I mean, I don't protest. I know it sounds like I do, y'all, but I don't protest every time something happens because it's not my group. Some of these groups have been here longer than me. For me to sit here and make them change their group, you can always make your own. It's a neat little button right there on the corner of Facebook. If you ever feel like the environments that you're in are unsafe, or you can create the environment, be the change you want to see, as they say. What do you think, Chessa?
I have a few things. So
Okay.
I completely agree with a lot of what you just said about, and I'm not a person of color, but being a person of color or being LGBTQ and coming into the ex Jehovah's Witness community, kind of just being birthed into the world by, like, in a way, because Jehovah's Witnesses have their own way of dealing with race that is still racist, but it's like very like subvertly racist. You know, it's very like undertone racist, and you don't recognize the white supremacy in it until after you leave, and then you're just like, what? But like for some people, they still don't see it. They're like, oh, Jehovah's Witnesses don't have a color. We're all over the world. We have pictures in the magazines of all the colors, you know, and they do it on purpose, but it's just simply not true. Like there's always favoritism and nepotism and this whole social structure based on where you live. And from traveling internationally, I saw how in Asia, the Chinese brothers or the Japanese brothers or the Filipino brothers were all treated differently based on their social class. And my former partner was a undocumented immigrant. So in our congregation, the other Hispanic and Latinos would still degrade him and look down on him. His sister was born here, and when she went to apply to be a pioneer at 14, they forced her to show her green card. And it was one of the elders who had been there when her mom was having her, who saw her come into the world, was asking, oh, Willie, do you really have, let me see your birth certificate. We need it on file. They faxed it, or they copied it, and they have it in her folder for Watchtower. Like, and I told her, I said, when I signed up to Pioneer, they didn't ask me shit about whether or not I was legal. They didn't ask me to submit documentation of proof of my identity. That is way too fucking far. So I saw the racism and the injustice and just this needling of people in the organization. I saw like the power plays and stuff. And I see the same thing in this environment. And listen, like one thing I tell hardworking activists all the time, because there are a lot of you like Emma working 24/7 around the clock. Like you have people coming to you that are in serious active trauma situations, and you're trying to encourage them to go to therapy. You're trying to help them with resources or find them a place to stay through a network. Or there's just drama online and someone's harassing or bullying someone. So you have to take care of that. Like it's literally a 24-hour-a-day job. And I have nothing but respect for you because it is exhausting. And so, you know, if I have a difference of opinion with a lot of people, because I think if you put that much effort into it, and if you are really making a difference and impacting people, if you are supported monetarily by that, more power to you, because I think you deserve to have some sort of relief. And I think all that time and effort that you put into it, like I remember when I was planning my protest, my first protest I ever did, I didn't sleep at all for months, because in the middle of planning the protest and trying to get everything out there and trying to call the police station and check with the ACLU, like deal with all that stuff, press. At the same time, I had people seeing that and coming to me with their stories, with their situations, with what they were going through, trying to get me to be a counselor to them. And I've literally had people tell me, well, why don't you become an empowerment coach? You could totally do that. I'll pay you $60 an hour every week. I don't feel comfortable. I don't feel comfortable. Okay. If you know, it's one thing if you have training, if you go through schooling of some sort, you know, that's one thing. But to just jump out of the organization and then not have any therapy yourself, not have any time to really like find out who you are and what you want to do with the rest of your life. Maybe you just jump out of the organization and you're like, all right, this is my life now. Like, come on, you know, Fox News, let's get going. Let's talk about it every week. And then you get like 8 months down the road and you just want to like kill yourself because you're just miserable. Like you have to recognize that this is a very multifaceted life to have this sort of thing going on. And it takes a lot of accountability and it takes a lot of seriousness. And I don't think a lot of people really understand how, if you're someone who does have a following, if you're someone that people really look up to and you've helped them and you've changed their life by telling your story, you really can't control what kind of impact that's going to have on someone. Like, I still get contacted all the time by people who saw the witnesses, and they're just like, wow, like, you're such an inspiration to me because you talked about what you went through. And for me, it's like, I appreciate it, but I don't want to build a relationship with the public of being someone who is patting myself on my back, or like I'm not approachable, or like I shouldn't be called out. That's like farthest from what I would want. I would rather be authentic. And I think for the longest time, like, I was looking back through my videos when I first started oh, thank you. When I first started, and I had just talked to David Gambacorta from the Philadelphia Inquirer, but I hadn't heard back yet, which was so surreal for me. I never imagined that anything like that in my life would happen. So I was still in shock mode. But I had been sitting on what had happened to me for over 20 years, you know, and I felt so silenced, and I wanted to do something. Like, we need resources in this community, damn it. Like, we need support. We need monetary support. We need housing. There's so many things that go through exiting a high control group, not only Jehovah's Witnesses. And it really does create a social disparity internationally. And I don't think governments realize that. I don't think they realize how it affects their pocketbook. I don't think they realize how it affects their resources, and how many ex-Jehovah's Witnesses or ex-Scientologists or ex-Hasidic Jews end up completely destitute of all resources, all family, anything. And then they have nothing else. And we have to have some sort of social re-education. Imagine people who go to Bethel, and you've met Bethelites. Like, they don't know how to support themselves when they leave. Same thing with COs. They have no fucking clue what they're doing. And what do? They become window washers. Why? Because that's it's relatable. Lots of Jehovah's Witnesses have been window washers. It's a joke, but at the same time, it's a career that makes you like a steady income where you can survive, and it's something that's always needed. That's understandable, but people don't know what to do when they get out. And a lot of people fall into debt. A lot of Bethelites go into serious, hardcore depression. Oh my God. Like, I can't tell you how many Bethelites I met that flew so close to the sun and really felt like so close to the ideal spirituality that Watchtower tries to bait you with a carrot to attain. Like, it's somehow going to make you a better quality of person, or like you're going to reach theta level in Scientology. Same thing. The ladder, right? So they get like so far up the ladder, and they really feel like they are doing the right thing, living the right life, secure in their rightness and in their righteousness. And then all of a sudden, the world completely shifts, and they're dealing with things that they hadn't even considered for a very long time. The whole social structure since they went into Bethel has changed. The territory where they used to witness in has changed. You know, so it's something we all go through. And it's the same thing with activists. Some activists will have like a really good, successful thing that happens to them. And it's not easy being thrown into the spotlight. I say that I don't really have a spotlight. Like, there's people who know who I am because of the witnesses, but it's not like a huge, you know, I don't have like thousands of YouTube fans or whatever. But like, it's hard when you're thrown into that from doing a special or something. I've seen some activists who were just there to talk about what happened to them and got really good news media that really captured what happened to them. And a lot of people who weren't Jehovah's Witnesses related to it, which is really what we want. That's the best way to spread awareness. So good on them. But they get put into this spotlight, and they don't have any time to process. And it can really get to you. It can really get to your head. It's like if you win the lottery, what do most people do? They spend all their money. They spend all their money, or they hand it over to financial overwriters or whatever that will misuse their funds. Like, they don't know how to handle it. And it's the same thing when you get any type of press or any type of celebrity. When you're an activist, it's good because it spreads awareness, and it creates this public narrative outside of our community, which is what we need. It really is. We need resources. We need help. and this needs to be recognized because it's everywhere in all cultures with many different high control organizations and people who are just thrown out with nothing. But at the same time, you need to understand what that entails, and you need to understand yourself. And so, you know, one thing that I always tell people when they come to me and they say, hey, like, I feel like I want to tell my story. I feel like I want to speak out. Like, what's my whole premise is use our voice. So I'm all about people expressing themselves. If someone approaches me about a protest, I had someone recently approach me and say, hey, can you give me like a play-by-play on some of the good things to do in the beginning? So I gave them advice on that. I'm happy to do that. But at the same time, the first thing I always ask them is, what do you want to say? What do you want to get across? How do you want to do that? And how do you feel about it? What do you conceptualize? Because this is your deal. This is your life. This is your path. And if you choose to use public speaking, or if you choose to engage and spread awareness or be a resource of support for people, that's great. But it has to be put in perspective in your life. It can't be the ruling focus in your life, which is really hard because once you start this, it's a lot.
I think,
like,
Emma, you wanted to say something to the
yeah,
fact
yeah,
that it's being
please.
heard. I'm sorry, Chessa.
No, please. Yeah.
You wanted to say something to the fact that being heard. And I hate to put you on the spot, Emma, but Linda has been talking so much about the Truth Project. I have no idea what that is. Now I want to know what it is.
Have you heard of the IICSA?
Yes.
That's going on right now in the UK. Well, they're part of the Truth Project.
Oh.
So they're asking all sexual abuse victims in the UK to come forward and tell their stories.
Okay.
So it's kind of like the Charity Commission kind of thing. So,
But the UK version.
Yeah. Well, we've got the Charity Commission of England and Wales in the UK, and then we've got the Truth Project as well.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look into that.
They started doing all the court cases, but then COVID called it off in March. But I actually seen the Truth Project advertised on TV in between. I'm not sure if it was the witnesses I was watching, and it came up on the TV as an advert, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. So, yeah.
But so yeah, activism is hard work, as Chessa was saying.
Yeah, looking back now, I'm kind of glad that I'd left about 11 years before I started talking to ex-witnesses on MySpace. And then I moved to Facebook and started my group. And I'm kind of glad that I'd gone out and lived my life. I've dropped a lot of the teachings and didn't believe in it anymore. So I think when I made my group, I was better off from doing that because I still wasn't hung up on the teachings, and I think it made it a lot easier. But it is hard. You know, I've said before, I've done it for 12 years now, and there's points where I'll back off from the group for a couple of days just to have a rest because it is really draining. But I've got a good admin team and I've got good members. So if I'm not there personally to assist people, I know they will. So it's good that I can take a few days back. And you have to do that. You have to kind of mentally recover from it because it is.
And it helps when you can partner with other people. Like we've partnered together in activism, but to help you through the down times, because a lot of people, activists, we know some good ones that just quit. You know, you see them here one day and the next day they're gone because of the pressure, because of the trolling, because of the all of the things that we discussed, you know, today. It can be a lot, you know, where activists feel like, okay, well, me helping. I have to say that, you know, I think if you've been doing it even a little bit, you know, you realize how hard it can be, and you have those moments of, you know, can I do this? You know,
but you know, it's so sad when other activists drive other activists out of the community. I hate to see that happen because it shouldn't. You know, we're all there to help.
Because I don't know if this has been said. I think sometimes that what I can see is kind of competitive in nature. It almost reminds me of being in the Kingdom Hall, where I don't care what nobody say, as much as they say, "Oh, we're pious and we don't like a lot of attention." Jehovah's Witnesses, the whole Jehovah's Witness setup is about clout chasing. You have to go from the next clout to the next clout, or if you're not pioneering, if you're not, special pioneering, if you're not, you have to be doing something else. You have to be going from the next position to the next position to the next position. And unfortunately, it takes clout to get there. But like Chessa was touching on earlier, she said awareness. Clout is also can be considered that. Not all clout is bad. Not all, because you want to bring awareness to your cause. I mean, what person activists don't, whether or not you're in the extra witness world or not. Molly, did you have some thoughts?
Yeah, hang on, I'm trying to get her back because we have been talking for a hot minute. So yeah, what I wanted to say is that it's definitely hard work. Like, you don't necessarily see the the like the planning and the scheduling that goes into these streams that we get out for you, and this is relatively said and I'm not saying that it's easy, before anyone tries to misunderstand, but the live streaming is the most comfortable and usually the easiest way to go, because it gives you the chance to live react, to adjust live, to explain further, and as you can see, team up easier than in a YouTube video per se. And yeah, the thing is, it takes a lot of time and effort to make it attractive, because obviously you want the information that you share to be public, for the public to see, because my point is not to like take down the tower. My point is to help JWs out, help Ex JWs out, help the public not get entrenched by the JWs, and just overall be a good, decent human being. And it's hard work because I take a lot of effort to research, to be accurate, and all that. And what Chessa was saying, that you cannot just get in it and go, boom, I'm an activist now, no therapy needed. And like, first of all, hold your goddamn horses. You cannot use Facebook Live to go stream in your Facebook group and cry about being shunned instead of going to therapy. And then when you're called out for not going to therapy or something, like to that effect, basically, in some cases, because like Spencer always says, hurt people. And when you're
I
called
got
out for
Spencer
hurting
got that from
people,
some woman. Hang on, Molly. Spencer got that from somebody
oh.
else. I don't know where I heard that from. That is not. I am not that clever. But go ahead, Molly.
Anyway, I heard it from you, and I just
Okay.
anyway.
It was
So
probably a meme, child. But go ahead.
so basically, the thing is that you need, like, and also like Emma said, you need to live your own life, because I'm not a mental health expert, but I'm an expert at one thing, and that's called Molly. I'm an expert at this bitch right here. Nothing more and nothing less. Like, whatever I share is my work and what I find and what I observe from people and tendencies that I see from people, and I feel like what we need to learn as XJWs is not to overshare, because that is very easily used against you, and I was threatened that it was gonna be used against me a few weeks back, in fact. So take that as you may. Be careful with social media and trusting people, because when when screenshots and and screen recordings and stuff start flying around from private conversations without consent and without valid reason, then I start to pull the old expression on my face. Like, you cannot expect people to trust you if you constantly share private conversations publicly without reason to win petty arguments with people you don't even know. And mind you, talking about you re-traumatizing others is not a petty argument. That's a valid argument, and that's a valid debate that needs to happen in the Ex JW community before anyone tries to think that certain things we were involved with are petty arguments. They are not. Those were valid concerns, and they called for those messages to be to be shared. I'm just trying to look at Spencer to see if I'm okay to say this.
Girl, don't be looking at me. You're not gonna put this on me. I got your back though.
No, I'm just trying to see if you're comfortable with me saying this, because if not, I'm gonna shut up. But yeah, basically, privacy, respect others' privacy and boundaries, and try not to overshare, because as attractive as that might be, because the shared experience, okay, but some of these experiences are from elders or those people who were close to the abuse happening, and eventually their conscience gave out. But do you think that if they covered it up within the org, they will not do it outside? And now,
That's a good point, Mark. Can I say something? This might be a little controversial, and y'all can click the live off if this is too much. I don't get. You know how when we were in the organization, you had these elders, men in
right.
these positions where and then you would have to sit there and pour your heart out to these elders. I just caution that some of us be very careful not to, as Molly's saying with the oversharing. You don't have to do that anymore to get help.
Right. And also another point.
What does a man now, if you're not an elder and you're not in a position where you're a
Right.
professional, a mental health professional, what do you get out of listening to getting those type of stories? I mean, what can you help the person with at that point, other than point them to a therapist?
Right, but I think Chessa was saying, oh my god, I lost the thought again. But it was an important one.
Oh, Chessa actually could tell us what she was saying, because she's going to close us out today.
Okay. So, I guess I've pissed people off a lot lately, and I know that I'm a very opinionated person. I get it, guys. Like, all of you know me, especially if you're a Facebook friend of mine. You know I'm very opinionated. I don't expect other people to agree with me. I don't expect other people to take my advice as a guidance post for their life. And I certainly don't think that they should shy away from sharing their opinion. At the same time, we have to recognize all this. It is triggering. There are a lot of things that are triggering. And especially if you're a person of color and you come into this community, there's so many people who will not recognize. And even if they do recognize, will not educate themselves. And this is a problem that we're having systemically everywhere right now. Internationally, there are movements against this ignorance, this entrenched abuse. You want to speak, Emma? Oh, yes, exactly. Yeah. So, a lot of people feel different ways about Black Lives Matter. A lot of people feel different about the corona virus that we have. Obviously, we've seen a lot of different activists sharing their various opinions on that matter. QAnon, Trump, Brexit. We got a lot going on. People are sassy. People are fighting. It's a presidential year, so people are getting ready to vote. We have a lot of polarizing aspects to our life right now, even when we turn our TVs on, and then we have them here. So again, like if you want to use your voice and you want to get out there and you really want to be effective and you want to be able to reach a wide public audience, and you want to be able to make an impact, fight for legislation, fight for things that are going to help people, try to find a way to get public housing, different things like that, awesome. Good for you. More power to you. And I think if you're going to do that, you should try to do it well, because I'm a personal believer. Whatever I do in my life, I'm going to ace it, or at least get close as I can. And I'm going to continue educating myself about that, because you can meet people who are millionaires and they think they have a full scope and full perspective and full understanding of their profession or their job or their life. And meanwhile, it's falling apart before your very eyes. But because they have that sense of validation, because they have that kind of recognition, they start to have that recognition for themselves, and it gives them a false reflection of who they really are. So you have to be careful of that, whether you have 10 people that look up to you or whether you have thousands. And if you want to be effective at legislation and things like that, you can still be yourself. You can still have a way of expressing your personality. And that was one thing I was going to say. Like, I was in such a traumatic point of my life around when my article was released. And I was going through coming out about being raped at 5 years old, and then having that on the front page of a newspaper, and then having all this other stuff going on, calling lawyers, calling police departments. My father was sick, so I had all that going on in the background. I had a lot going on. Most of us do, because we're ex Jehovah's Witnesses. We're at some point of that exit, and a lot of us have a crap ton of stuff. So you'll look at my old videos and it's almost hard for me to watch them, because I have that deer in headlights look where I seem like very, and I want to help. I want to get a message across. I feel like I need to speak. I have something to say, and I've been silenced for so long. I'm coming out with it, and I'm glad that I did. But now I recognize that I don't have to be stoic and read off a script and edit so much that like you can see like glitches in my videos, because I just felt so self-conscious and I was afraid to show my personality. I was so focused on the information I was trying to give, and I wasn't giving myself in a way. So as you go through this, you're all going to learn different things at different times. Try to be the best. And that's one reason why I think we have so I come from an international business background, and I am used to dealing with people who are of a completely different culture, completely different set of beliefs, sometimes do things that are very, very offensive. And a lot of them had a lot of money, so they weren't very accountable people, and they didn't really live healthy lives. And they had things that they did that were not copacetic, for sure. So we had to learn how to have a business type relationship with these people to have the best results, because that's what you want in any business, in the quickest time with the least cost. And so, you had to learn how to converse with these people and have some sort of acquaintance and relationship with these people. And at the same time, how not to identify yourself with them or feel the need to always combat their opinion or their viewpoint, because they're their own separate person. It's not your business. It's not your life. And if it's something serious, you can report it to authorities or whatever you want to do. And it should be the same thing here. Like, if you really want to make a difference, if you really want to have a wide audience, if you want to talk to media, that's business. It is. And you should treat it like it. You should have NDAs, in my opinion, non-disclosure agreements, if you're going to be helping people who are physically in, mentally out of a cult, who, if their identities were released, would completely have their worlds flipped upside down and would absolutely have dangerous things happen to them. You're dealing with people in active trauma. Every day is dangerous. I remember when I was in active trauma, when I was a witness, very suicidal, constantly felt like the world was like coming down on me at every moment. And because I was waking up and so counterculture to what I lived every day, dissonance is not a good place to be. So when you're coming out of that, or when you're dealing with suicidal thoughts or tendencies or something like that, take a step back if you need to, take a break, whatever you need to do. But when you're dealing with someone who's going through that, you need to protect them. You need to protect their identity. You need to protect their personal information. And I think by starting chats, especially if you're working on a project, and saying that that stays in that chat, that you're not allowed to screenshot that and share it, that you're not allowed to give out personal details on people, is professional. And I think we should be more professional and get our shit together.
Go ahead, Emma, and then Molly.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think to be an activist, you have to have a certain amount of outspokenness in you to stand up there to do it. But I'm outspoken. I always have been. I didn't make a good Jehovah's Witness because I was outspoken, always in trouble. But anytime I'm outspoken, it is only ever to help and protect the community.
And Molly, did you have something you wanted to say?
Yeah, I wanted to add to what Chessa said about privacy agreements. I want to say also, because countries' laws are different. If someone shares a screenshot of a chat that I'm in, and that shit gets subpoenaed for some reason, or it gets to the police that I'm in that chat and that screenshot was shared, I could go to jail. So I think it's important not just for PMOs, but for other activists, when you create a group chat of hang on. I'm trying not to sound like someone who only has like one brain cell. I'm not succeeding at it today, so forgive me. But the point here is, when you enter a group or a chat group or something like that, I think it should be standard procedure to say, first of all, this is not for like spilling the beans and tea and drama or whatever. This is for this. And if you have an issue with someone, like say you suspect that someone is being abusive, someone is being bigoted, someone is misusing funds, misusing information, whatever, then you should say, I have a suspicion that this person is misusing funds. End it. Nothing more, no opinions, information, boom, done. And then you can have a discussion about it. We should have a discussion about misusing funds, misusing personal information, misusing information, misusing just people and influence on them. Because let's be real, it takes a certain kind of charisma to be able to inspire people and to have people interested in you enough to subscribe to your YouTube channel, to follow you on Twitter, Facebook, whatever. You need to have a certain oh, this person is likable to you. You have to have that. And it's not a bad thing to have that, mind you. I have been told that I have that. I don't believe that I do. But alas, I have been told that I do have likableness to me that makes people wanna speak to me and engage with me. And I try to not misuse that to make people overly attached to me, because I want people, Ex JW or not, to stand on their own two legs on the solid ground that's not shaking and that's not flimsy and flip-floppy under them. Because guess what? My mental health makes me a massive bag of dicks sometimes. And if I'm the only person who you can trust, then one day my mental health is making me act like a massive bag of dicks. And you're gonna be hurt by me, and I don't want that. I want you to be able to, first of all, call me out on my bullshit, like we do call out each other on our bullshit privately here in the four of us. And I want
You know,
to be able to be vulnerable enough to say, well, my mental health is not the best right now, so I think it's best for you to not confide in me about trauma right now, because I will be in an emotional state and I will not give you the best advice. I will give you a trauma-based advice, and that's no good. And I think that transparency and honesty should be there if you're an activist. When people reach out to you, sometimes you need to tell them, look, I haven't slept in like 3 days, which is the case right now. I'm on 3rd day with like very limited sleep, so I'm like completely losing it. So yeah, transparency is needed and honesty is needed. If you have, symptoms flaring up as an activist, you have and you should be able to say, yes, I am very happy to help you. Can I get you to contact someone who I know is able to help you better now, because I'm not feeling well these days and I don't want to perpetrate more trauma on you by reacting in a very triggered way, because yeah, I'm sorry, I ramble.
I just wanted to say something about what Chessa's saying, and then Chessa, you can jump in at any point. You know, when you go into activism, a lot of people go into it as friends or acquainted with each other or buddies. You know what I'm saying? Then sometimes you come out of it and you ain't even speaking to the person no more or something like that. But I think what Chessa is trying to say is one of the ways that you can avoid that is that you have to realize that when you start dealing with money and other people's money, it becomes business. You know, you have to be able to learn how to separate business relationships from your own, and that's what I'm learning. I'm learning, and it's a learning process for everybody. And there's nothing wrong with, to me, you know, NDAs, privacy agreements, especially if you're trying to protect the interests of not only the activists or PMOs or because what people don't realize is that, you know, especially with PMOs, at some point they're going to transition into the ex Jehovah's Witness community. And I think I said this before, you know, we shouldn't be in a position where we know all their business or be in the position to be able to tell all of their business. It's nobody's business how much money you gave somebody. It just really is not. I don't know. What you think, Chessa? Is that where you was going with this? I know I put a Spencer spin on it. I can't hear you. Is it just me?
Can you hear me now?
Yep, there you go.
Okay, I'm trying to figure this out. Thank you for the headphones, by the way. Spencer got me headphones, so you can finally hear me. Yeah, so whenever you bring finances into any relationship, it's going to make things different. Even if you have a friend, let's say your friend comes to you and they say, hey man, like I'm short of my rent. Can I have $500? I'll pay you back next month, whatever. And you're like, okay, sure, fine. So you give them the little that you have extra or whatever you have, even if it's $5, and then they don't pay you back, or they still complain about not paying their rent like next week. And you're like, but and where'd that new Xbox come from? What the fuck is wrong with you? Like, pay your rent, you know? So like whenever you bring finances into a relationship, it's going to make things different. And so, you know, do ex Jehovah's Witnesses, does our community, as well as ex Scientologists, ex Muslims, whatever, need financial resources? Do we need 501c3s? Absolutely, we do. But at the same time, you know, all of us have watched it. We've watched the public breakups of famous activists. We've watched the starting of 501c3s, and then 6 months later, there's no one there. Like, it's just like, where did they go? Where did all that money go? It's just poof, gone. So I can't tell you, like, because I started this PMO fund, right? And I've tried to help PMOs before, just personally. Like, people have even given me money to send to them because they didn't know how to do it or they didn't want to get involved with it. So I've done it for them. I've facilitated it. So I can't tell you like how many times I get someone saying, oh, you know, she misuses her funds. She didn't give that all to them. She didn't this, she didn't that. She took money from me, but I have the receipts. So people will come to me and they'll say, hey, I heard that you took this person's money or you did a GoFundMe and this happened. And I'm like, oh, no, here you go. So if you guys want some free advice, save your receipts. Anything that has to do with money, save it because you never know. And it's the same thing. If you're dealing with someone who is in an active trauma situation and it's really serious, I believe that anybody who wants to be an ex Jehovah's Witness activist that wants to talk about things like the 2 witness rule and CSA needs to be a mandated reporter. And when I meet activists who hear about situations where there's currently a child in trauma and they don't reach out either to a therapist to ask them what to do or call a hotline or refer that person to a therapist, don't give them 24 hours to decide because there's a child in active abuse. And I'm telling you, when I first came out and when I first started doing this, I didn't know. That was something I had to educate myself on. Mandated reporting training is free in most states. And I'm pretty sure we'd all agree if someone who is a serious activist who wants to do more says, hey, I need money so that I can get mandated reporter training, boom, I'll pay for that. Absolutely. Because the more educated you are, the better you're going to be at handling and helping to handle situations because all of us have trust issues and we only have each other to familiarize with. We don't have any other constants in our life. Like everybody that we meet after we become an ex Jehovah's Witness is someone of a different background. And there are not many people who can relate to what we're going through. So we have questions and we'll ask, like, I'll ask my boyfriend for advice sometimes. And he'll just look at me like I'm an alien from another planet because he was raised Catholic and like not even serious Catholic. He left when he was 15. No big deal in his family. Like nobody cares, you know? So for me to tell him about some of this stuff, sometimes he's like, man, that's fucked up. I don't know. Let's change the conversation. And it's not because he's being rude. It's because he doesn't know how to, people don't know how to deal. Right. So we reach out, we overshare with each other because we have no one else that understands. But at the same time, you also have the toxicity and you also have the mental health trauma and you also have the spiritual abuse. There's also therapy. Like, let's say someone does get training. Let's say someone, which I've always liked psychology. I would love to go into college or go to schooling for something along those lines. But you'll see people who become therapists or become life coaches, but then they kind of go culty with it. And we got to recognize there is therapy and there is woo-woo magic and there's all this kind of stuff that is just as culty as being a Jehovah's Witness. And just because they don't have the same basic setup doesn't mean they don't have the same kind of life control, thought control, hive mind process. So
Can I
check
say something
yourself.
really
Yes,
quick? I'm
please.
just going to say this real
No,
quick
please. Yeah.
before I forget it. Yeah, I won't name groups or things like that, but yeah, sometimes some people just transfer the platform from the Kingdom Hall to the Ex Jehovah's Witnesses. If they was given talks in the Kingdom Hall, now they're giving talks in the Ex Jehovah's Witness world. If they was given counseling in the and if you have an activist making you feel like they are the solution, whether it's religious or not, that they have this movement that you just must be a part of in order to live your best life as an ex Jehovah's Witness. I mean, a lot of us born in Jehovah's Witnesses, I would say, didn't have the choice of choosing the religion. So sometimes, you can kind of be naive in some ways when you first come out. You have to be very careful that people are not, I don't want to say exploiting your pain, but just don't know how to handle that sort of thing. And unfortunately, we've had activists in our community are very open about their ambitions within the community. That their ambitions is to have a following or to be the biggest activist. That's not uncommon. I mean, it's shocking, but I mean, people are people. I just want to jump in and say that real quick, Chessa. That you know, one of the things you want to look out for, you know, I've had even in the ex Jehovah's Witness Christian communities where it seems like these people have to start their own church They have to start their own follow. You must follow them now. Before they was Jehovah's Witnesses, and you had to follow them then because they had the truth. But now, nope, scratch that. They really got it now. And now you're going to hell in their religion if you don't follow them. You know what I'm saying? And some of them have huge followings. Where they come in your group, well, people probably know who I'm talking about, but I'm not gonna name the names. Where they rabid followers of this one person who they believe is a prophet from the Watchtower, and this woman has such a following that their followers will get upset at you, will troll you, get mad at you because you don't believe this woman is coming on to take on the Watchtower in this spiritual sense. It's a lot of different factions of Ex Jehovah's Witness in our community out there, and there's some fringe elements of it that you have to be aware of too. I just wanted to put that out there because as much as people, I do think feeling like you are the biggest activist and feeling like people have to follow you is toxic in itself. Why do you need people to follow you? Why do you want followers? Please don't follow me nowhere.
Well,
I'm
and
gonna let
here,
you off a cliff somewhere trying to follow me.
did you want to speak, Emma? Were you or Molly?
Oh.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, about that is, look, like I said, sometimes I can be a massive bag of dicks. So I'm not gonna say that I'm like this flawless, perfect, happy little unicorn. I'm trying to be. I never will be. That's made me like Emma said. I never made a good a good Jehovah's Witness either, because I was always like like a very skeptical and very like more pessimistic person. And well, CBT and all, come to realize, oh honey, that was depression, which is cool. But like like you see, we acknowledge that we have tendencies, and we have those times when we need to be like, whoa, hold your horses, we're taking a break right now, you're exiting for a few days, you will just take a chill pill, focus on you, because as much as I want to help people, I do realize that I'm only an expert at me. I'm only an expert at Molly. And I cannot talk on anybody else's experience, really. And I just hope that by me sharing stuff that helped me and information that helped me and my story and my experience, that I will help other people to get better, because it's hard. It's hard coming out. And I guess, but oh my god, I had other thoughts too, but I keep losing them. But basically, it should be privacy and the safety of the people you try to advocate for above all else, and not your reputation, not your it gotta look good. How you look, how you come across. I mean, yeah, I do want to look professional as much as I can with my limited resources right now. But at the same time, I also acknowledge that I'd much rather have a smaller um, group of people who take an interest in me, but that for me being real and authentic, instead of for me being the loudest person in the room and acting like I'm the most knowledgeable person. I will never be like that.
Emma, did you have anything you wanted to throw in? Sorry, Spencer. I thought you.
Sorry, I did disappear for a second because I was trying to get my dog not to find my stream. But yeah, Emma, you wanted to say something about names, calling out names. Why you don't personally do it, or
Oh
have
no,
you?
that was that? Yeah, it was me.
Oh, was you? Oh, okay.
Okay, so two things, and this is going to seem like a weird lead to this, but it's going to make sense. So, obviously, like I first started thinking about like self-harming and stuff when I was about 8 years old, which was very, very young, but I was dealing with a lot of serious trauma. And then that continued, and I didn't really get therapy until my first therapist, which was just an online therapist at 17, which online therapy, we're having to use it right now because of COVID, but it's not the most, especially back then, it wasn't the most successful. And then I didn't really get my first real therapy until right after I left the organization at about 26. So a lot of people who get into this trauma bond, even when they're activists, even when they're people who are very well known, they still trauma bond with each other. And that's why you see people who will do projects together and they'll be so close and supportive. And then the next minute you hear that they're like separating themselves from this organization or separating themselves from this person. And that does happen. But like the reason why I don't name names is because you never know what point a person is at mentally, even if they're doing something proactive like activism. And I feel like if I name someone, what I want for people is for them to be healthy first and foremost. So even if I disagree with someone, even if they piss me off, I don't want to do anything that's going to negatively impact them health-wise, mentally, or physically. So I avoid naming people because also I don't think they're going to hear what I have to say. And sometimes I know if I'm having an argument with my boyfriend, for instance, I'll get mad. I won't want to hear anything that he has to say. And the only reason why I wait for him to stop talking is so I can start speaking. Like everybody does that. So, sometimes it's hard to hear people who really do have constructive criticism for you. And sometimes it's hard to hear it from the people who are closest to you the most. So sometimes you're just like, you know. But I think if I don't name people, sometimes they hear it a little bit more, and sometimes they'll kind of open up their mind a little bit more. And then also, when you talk about the behavior instead of the person directly, that makes it so that other people can take that and apply it to themselves. If you focus on who the activist is, then you lose what they're doing. And what they're doing is really what's causing the most harm. It's like if you have a loved one who's an alcoholic. Like, I get the whole hate the disease, not the person thing. Because, and it's really hard. You can see people who do really, like I said, egregious shit. And you're just like, how could you do that to another person? How could you lie about that? How could you be one thing in public and another thing in private? You can have angry feelings. All of us do. All of us are angry. It's normal. It's okay. It's okay to be angry. But at the same time, if you talk about the behavior, that way you can address it with everybody, because I guarantee somebody else in the future or somebody else in the past did the same shit, different story. And I think the more we start talking about behavior, the more we'll start growing and getting out of this toxic culture, instead of just like people say, character assassinating this activist for this, character assassinating this activist for that. And you can be character assassinating them for the same reasons. And some of those reasons may be justifiable, but you're not going to stop it from happening again. You're not going to educate yourself. You're not going to educate the community. So by talking about that behavior and by educating ourselves as we speak about it and getting different dialogue, that's what really helps us build together. And I'm hoping that that will lead to a more positive result. And like with the Black Lives Matter movement right now, there's a lot more conversation I think I see happening right now, even though a lot of it is angry. A lot of it is angry, but I think there's still dialogue there. And I think that that's really important. Even if it's not pretty, I think it's really good to have some sort of dialogue that leads to de-escalation, but that also leads to less toxicity. So I'm hoping that the more we talk about this, we can talk about the behavior, we can get into the specifics of what happens, get into specifics of whether or not that's legal or not. And then if you have a serious problem with an activist and you want people to know that they're a dangerous person, contact your local authorities. Or if you don't like the police, contact a board. If someone's a board member of a certain organization or charity and you think that they're misusing funds or you think that they are money laundering. There was an organization I wanted to work with because they did bailouts. They did a lot of good things for their community. They had great press, and it really seemed they had an ex Jehovah's Witness background, and it really seemed like they wanted to help people. And they already had a 501c3 set up, and they were like, hey, like, you're my people too. How can I help you? How can we get this going? And the more I got to know them, I realized that this was all about money for them. And it was all about money for them. And from having a business background, I was able to recognize that very easily, because it's easy to tell in business all the time. But a lot of people didn't. So you would have these ex Jehovah's Witnesses who would call in, and this person would tell them like, oh, well, we're going to talk to this person from another foundation, and they're going to talk to us about how we can raise $1 million in this amount of time frame with these like fundraisers and stuff. Like, they're going to give us the ideas that we need to orchestrate this. And then they would start saying on the phone call, and, you know, Joe over here, he's been going through a hard time. If I make the money for my organization first, and we're going to focus on my organization and my name first, then I can give Joe here $1 million. I can give so-and-so $1 million. So then you plant this idea in people's heads that, oh my God, my life answers are solved. Like, I can do a good thing. I can fundraise, I can organize, and at the same time, I can have like personal benefit. Who doesn't want to be a millionaire? Wouldn't it make things easier? But at the same time, like, they were manipulating people's hopes and dreams. And then I saw them start using another person who was a friend of mine that I cared about, who was an activist, their mental health. They were bipolar. They started triggering them on purpose and sicking them on people. They started triggering them and making them angry and getting them riled, and then sicking them on the people they didn't like. That's sociopathic. That's crazy. And so when I saw all this and I saw that they were being investigated for money laundering, I was just typing their name, and an article pops up. Oh, so-and-so, literally their name, with this charity, literally their charity, is being investigated with this judge for money laundering. I'm not going to work with you.
You know, I think
I
that's
would be
really
dead.
great to say, because
Oh my God.
as Jehovah's Witnesses, we had a complicated relationship with money. You know, borrowing money from each other. Because at some point, I think the articles will just say, don't really do business with each other. It kind of got to that point, like, be very leery of doing business with your brothers or dealing with money transactions and stuff like that, which I don't know why we had to be leery of other people who are supposed to be the most honest people on earth. You would think that it's always kind of contradictory. It's like, we're the most honest people that you'll ever meet, but don't do business with each other. You know, you would think that would be anyway. But I think that when we transfer that over into the Ex Jehovah's Witness community, like you're saying, like the activists that you ran into with money laundering, situations, you have to be careful who you're giving your money to. And I have to say this now because, the Glass Table has launched their very own Patreon. And then some of us have our own individual Patreons here. I know that I don't want us to come across that we're trying to demonize the very thing that we have. But you have to know, it took Chessa 2 seconds to do a Google search, or it don't take a lot to research the people that you are thinking about giving to. And I think a good way of trying to figure out if a person will be transparent or not, because there are some activists, and I will not name their name, but every time money comes up about where the money is going, because this activist has basically lives off the money, he gets mad at followers or people asking him. So I'm not suggesting that this person is doing anything wrong, but if you're not, then and you're transparent, why not? You can't not in one turn say Watchtower does not give us financial accounting for everything that they do, and then turn around and employ the same taxes as the Watchtower. Like, it doesn't matter. There's nothing to see here, as far as your own money. And then at the end of the day, people vote with their money at the end of the day. So you have to figure out who you feel comfortable with giving the money. And if the activists have, qualms about being a transparent, that would be a big clue that that's probably not where you might want to send your money to, because, I personally believe activism should be free.
And can I just say, Chessa, who you're talking about, I'm not going to name, but they tried to bring me into their organisation at one point as well. And something just made me go, no, not right now. And I'm glad that I dodged that bullet, because then probably not even a year down the line, they ended up attacking me viciously online. So I was really glad that I was, something about them just made me think.
So, you guys, we have actually approached we're almost at the 2-hour mark. So, with this toxic, we actually started off saying, how would this show shape up? Chessa, did you want to close us close us out?
Molly, did you have anything to add really quick before I do?
Yeah, just for a quick second, is that as for Patreon, those of us here, I think all of us have like private Patreons for our own activism, right?
Not yet.
I know I do, and I know
do.
that you two ladies do. Anyway, the Glass Table has, Duncan Religion has Patreon, but what we're gonna do with them is, first of all, any money we receive and any money we spend, we will post receipts of to the page to people who support us on Patreon. And what else we will do is provide non-activism non-activism content on our Patreon and stuff like that. For as far as mine goes, I know that if my channel ever gets big enough to have enough audience to do such a thing, I know that audience will be able to have a say in, say, the topics I will talk about or do research on. I know that I will share my writing on Patreon and stuff like that. So the thing is that our activism will still be free, but some stuff needs to be sorted. For example, travel expenses, printing, getting shit done. I will need to lawyer up when lockdown ends because I want to go to battle. I want to lawyer up and get lawmakers aware of this. So I will need to have money to lawyer up mainly, and it ain't cheap to lawyer up. And as much as I am trying to resolve that from my own pocket, but that's money that usually goes to either savings because I don't want to live in a rental apartment forever, and as well as I want to, have a good background for myself because, as COVID has proven, any job is very easily disposable when it becomes comfortable for the lizard overlords.
Well,
I'm sorry, that's it.
Okay, so one thing I wanted to bring up is, since I started this, a lot of people have contacted me and asked how they could support me personally. And I am not someone who has a lot of money. I have been incredibly grateful when people have given me donations for my own bills and finances before. It's allowed me to keep my car. It's allowed me to go see my father when he was dying. It's allowed me to do a bunch of things. So I really do appreciate that, like genuinely from the bottom of my heart. Like a lot of us, if we do get donations or financial help, it does help us out. And it also allows us to have more time to be able to do these things. And some of us really are effective. Like I'm a big believer in doing what you love. And there's a lot of things about activism that I do love and I enjoy doing, even though they're difficult. So if you make money off this, if you have a Patreon, if you give good content consistently on your channel, or if you're helping educate people who are non-Jehovah's Witnesses and you're making a lot of money or you're appearing in a lot of documentaries or whatever it is, like I know there's some people who don't like certain people because they have a celebrity status. I try not to judge too hard because I know what it's like to, just from being an international business, have money and have, that kind of status in a way. And it's not all bad. You can use it for good. You can be effective at what you do and make money. And I think that's great. If it's something that you're passionate about, if it's something that you love, if it's something that you dedicate more than 10 hours a day to, which a lot of activists do, if there's a way for you to be helped financially, that's great. And I've had a lot of people who have reached out to me and said, Chessa, how can we support you? And for a long time, I was very uncomfortable. I didn't want to take money from people. And there were times that I had to because I was in such a crisis situation, like I was losing my car. But other times when I was a little bit better off, I would turn it down. I would tell them to donate somewhere else. So I think the most important thing is not to get greedy, not to make everything a promotional sale, and to really, you know, do the work, be invested in the work, whether you make money off of it or not. And then also there's places like the ACLU or the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're activist organizations that do make money. They have a staff, they have a payroll, and it's completely fine because what they do, the work that they do is amazing. And everyone knows it. They do good work. So if you're an activist that does good work consistently and you're doing things that are professional and you're starting your own organization and you want to be serious about it, more power to you. If you raise finances, great job. But just, you know, make sure that you use it for the right reason. And if you're donated money for other people, do not use it for yourself. And that's where I make the varying difference. Like if someone gives me money and they're like, here, Chessa, this is for you to help you out with your life. Some people do that. And I'm like, thank you so much because I can pay a bill or whatever, you know, that's great. But if someone gives you this money because they see what you're doing and they want to help you either grow that into something bigger, or they want to help you send money to a PMO or send money to someone who needs it, do that. Don't use it for yourself, because it's manipulating people's trust, and it's abusing their trust, and it's against their consent. And I think financially, consent is a big thing. So if you do donate to someone and you want to make it specific, like if you give me money and you say, I want this to go to someone who is homeless, or I want this to go to someone who's a sexual abuse survivor, or a mother with kids, whatever you tell me, however specific you get, I probably know something or somebody that you can help, or I know an organization or charity that will help them. But if you give me something and you're like, here, this is for you, thank you. Genuinely, I appreciate the help. And I just, you know, donate, be specific, save all your receipts. Don't be afraid to speak out, but make sure that you're in a healthy place to do it. And if you're in a crisis environment, it's great to want to be an activist, but you need to focus on healing yourself first so that you can be better, so that you can do more, and so that you won't harm yourself or overwork yourself or get burnt out like we see so many people do. And you'll really be able to do this in a healthy way, long or short term, depending on how you feel once you get into it. And remember that this is always your choice. You wake up every morning, you have the choice of what you want to do with your day. So make sure that whatever you do is meaningful, that it brings you joy, like condo your life. And especially when it applies to this, don't start something that you're not ready for. Don't jump into things that you're not feeling fully capable to handle, and never be afraid to ask for outside help, and never be afraid to get therapy.
Sounds good to me. Chessa always has the good advice. Y'all can check her out. And I always get this wrong. I want to call you UVO, and it's not. It's use our voice. So it's UOV, right? On late nights, which will be resuming soon, right?
Yes, and I wanted to mention, I got approached by former fundamentalist of New York City a few weeks back, and they asked if I would moderate a panel discussing the Witnesses documentary, and I was super, super honored to do that. It's a small group; it's like with 25 people, and it's private to the fundamentalist group in NYC. But I reached out to the other people who had been in the documentary, and Deborah McDaniel and Sarah Brooks both agreed to go on with me for that group. And I talked to them, and I actually announced it today, but I do have a live that's happening tonight before we go into that group that's public. And you can get to meet them. You can ask them questions. One thing I do want to say is this is going to be more focused on the documentary. So any personal questions or lifestyle questions may not be answered. It's up to their discernment. But as far as the documentary goes, or CSA activism goes, things like that, or what the documentary was like, footage, whatever you want to ask, feel free to check out my live stream tonight. It should be around 5 or 6 p.m. EST.
Yay! We are all so proud of you, and we are all looking forward to it. You get to do a panel, so I'm gonna be looking for some pointers on how to facilitate panels.
Can
So
you
that,
help me find out an intro? Because I'm never able to do an intro for StreamYard. I have no idea how to do that.
girl, you know I told you I will help you anytime.
I need your help. Help me.
I will help you. You know, Molly is good with intros now too.
Yes.
She's about to pass me up.
Save me, please.
Yeah, look, ladies, if you want, because I just discovered this kick-ass, like, free of charge
It's
YouTube
free.
thumbnail. Yeah, hang on. My God, my brain needs to get its shit together. So thumbnail, YouTube banner, YouTube intros, YouTube end cards and outros, and you can try to have me edit music under it. It might take me like 3 days and nearly pissing myself twice because I'm very blind and very deaf. I'm joking. I'm usually capable, but I suck with like video editing. So
Her intros are good too. I'm sick of you talking about my friend. You talking about she deaf, she blind, she can't do nothing.
I'm still behind.
dick.
Like, I don't know any of
Bag
what
of
you guys
dicks
do.
earlier.
You guys will talk in chat, like in between like these lives. You guys will talk about the stuff you're doing, or you'll go through like show
okay,
overviews,
ladies, but
and I'm just like,
if you wanna stick on StreamYard after this live for like about 10 minutes, I needed
Yeah.
like 10 minutes to figure it out. I will send you the link and try and show you with screen share. What the
Thank
fuck
you.
is
Good.
that?
Okay, so before we go, I want to let everybody know that our next. Can you guys hear me? Hang
Yeah.
on. Okay, that our next big show is our Pride show. Can y'all believe it? Our next big show is our Pride show. So we're gonna leave tonight with our outro, specifically for Pride Month. Our next, we have a show break coming up, you guys, next week, because it is Father's Day. So make sure you catch us. We might, I don't know, do something else. We're not sure. Maybe
Yeah.
premiere something. We'll figure out something. Maybe
Mhm.
you can chat with us or something. I don't know. But
Yeah,
we're definitely not doing a show next week. And also we have a new one of our Patreon episodes that we are going to attempt to record our first Patreon episode. And it's a very interesting one. It's about sex and Watchtower stuff and what we think about sex now after the Watchtower. It's going to be a little bit more adult theme. So you might
Yeah.
not want to have kids around for that or it's not suitable for work. It's definitely not suitable for work.
Yeah. Can
Let's
I
talk
just say?
about sex.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Can I just say that on my channel, I'm doing Pride topics all month because duh. If you didn't know, I'm very queer, and I just want to say that I dedicate like basically all my activism and all the allegedly awesome shit that I have been doing or that happened to me to my best friend, because I'm not sure if he will catch it, because he is very triggered by religious talk, and that's why I'm like a very big bag of dicks when religious people start harping on gay people, because yeah.
Okay, so I just want to say, Linda, again, we're not going to be here next week. Please don't look for us next week. Next week is our show break. We are off for Father's
We're
Day.
going to Hawaii next week.
But the following week, I think we're going to be at our same time, which is 1 p.m. Eastern time. And we'll have all the times for the Pride show. We're also having a Pride makeup pre-show chat before
And
that. So
you can catch me on the 29th of what month are we? June, right?
Uh-huh.
The 29th of June on a live stream with a stand-up comedian who interviews ex-fundamentalist queer people throughout the month. That will be at hang on, I'm trying to. That will be on at 9 p.m. UK time. I
I
guess.
didn't know you was definitely doing that. That was cool.
Yeah, it's being like confirmed right now,
Cool.
tomorrow actually. So I just want to put it out there because
Okay,
I
and
have.
you guys can catch up with all of our individual projects under our streamer links. If you haven't discovered that
Yep.
we are now using streamer links so that you can keep up with us all individually and our projects together. I just want to reiterate for those who think we will not be on next week. It is a show care break, but we
Yeah.
will be following up with our Pride show as the Glass Table, and we will be following up with our Rated R new Rated R sessions that we're doing. So we're
Mhm.
gonna go ahead and sign off, and we're gonna say
Yeah.
goodbye to everybody.
Bye
And we
everyone.
hope you like our new outro.
Thanks for joining us.